Hey there, I'm Julie, and this is the Married to Addiction podcast. If you're here, then you're probably what I call my secret sister. We're in a situation we never asked to be in and fighting a battle we never wanted to fight. We're faith-filled women who are married to an alcoholic, and it affects every inch of our lives. If that sounds like you, then this is a safe place for you to land. Married to Addiction is a faith-based podcast where I help you find the tools and strength you need to navigate your husband's addiction without losing yourself in the process. So please subscribe and tune in as often as you can, because your husband's recovery is important, but so is yours. The Married to Addiction podcast is brought to you by the Secret Sister Circle. The Secret Sister Circle private group coaching program was designed to take the Christian wife of an alcoholic from hurting to healing. If your life feels unmanageable because of your husband's drinking, if you feel consumed by his addiction and you're constantly trying to figure out how to stop it, if you have let everything else in your life fall by the wayside, including yourself, then the SSC was created for you. I actually built the SSC around what I needed back when my husband was deep in addiction. I clearly remember sitting on the floor of my closet one day, just bawling and frantically searching Google for help. I couldn't really find what I needed, which was help, detailed help, step-by-step help designed for a Christian wife, because it was also super important to me to have that element built in because of my faith. And I wanted to be guided by that, from that angle. So if that sounds like you, we would love to have you join us in the Secret Sister Circle. You can get the help you need without feeling exposed. It's a private online program with a private online community of other wives just like you. And you are taken step by step through every possible scenario that you could encounter as the wife of an alcoholic. We would love to have you join us. You can get started beginning today and start moving towards healing. Just go to www.marriedtoaddiction.com and look for the tab that says Secret Sister Circle. We'd love to have you join us. Hello, and welcome in to episode 101 of the Married to Addiction podcast. Today, I am super privileged to be joined by one of my Secret Sister Circle members who's going to be sharing some of her recovery journey with us. As a reminder, just real quick, my SSC, if you're not familiar with that, is the Secret Sister Circle. That's my group coaching program for wives of alcoholics. So first of all, I wanted to thank you so much for being brave enough to be here with me today and share a part of your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So I think we'll kick off by just kind of having you tell us a little bit about your journey, like your overall journey as a wife of an alcoholic. How long have you been married? Like, when did your husband start drinking? Those types of things.
Sure. Yeah, so I've known him since I was a kid. We were high school sweethearts. We've been married for 6 years, and dealing with addiction for about 3. It took me a little while to figure out, what was going on just due to some kind of underlying medical issues. And honestly, I had kind of a preconceived idea of what alcoholism looked like. He wasn't a partier. He didn't go to bars. We both drank socially a little bit, but, um, you know, drinking too much wasn't something we really ever participated in. And, I had kind of the idea in my head that anybody addicted to alcohol was like drinking every single day and couldn't live without it. And, it took me a while to realize that there were some different things going on there. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at, married for 6 years and dealing with this for about 3. So,
Gotcha. So you have been the wife of an alcoholic for a while, it sounds like I'm sure you have dealt with a lot of the stuff that we talk about here in the podcast. And I know from
hmm
just like seeing some of your posts in the group and stuff, as a lot of our journey looks this way, where it's just up and down. It's seems like sometimes are a little bit better and sometimes are a little bit worse. But where were you when you initially found the Secret Sister Circle? Like, what did things look like during that particular period?
yeah. So before finding and joining the Secret Sister Circle, things were pretty messy. My husband had gotten a DUI and he couldn't drive for a bit. And, in my head, I thought this would be the perfect time for me to get him to quit drinking. And, because when he had to go places, I was driving him or some family members. And um, I questioned him a lot and I spent a ton of time looking for alcohol bottles, documenting what was happening. I tried to control his ability to buy alcohol, such as if somebody had to take him to town, just making sure that they didn't let him go into stores alone or um, like basically not allowing him to carry cash. And then when a store opened up that could carry alcohol right next to where he was working, I tried to get him to leave his ID and his wallet behind. And um, it obviously caused a ton of conflict and it never worked. And he always found ways around it. And yeah, it was just like I just couldn't let go, it was my job. It was so uncomfortable. I just had to figure out how to make it stop. And I rarely went out with friends. I almost never left him home alone. Just all sorts of trying to manage him. And it was just totally consuming. Like most of my days and time was spent trying to juggle work and what he was doing. And yeah, it was just kind of a mess. um, but I also want people to know that this is also a really normal reaction to something that's so painful and uncomfortable. And I don't think any of us do it with bad intentions, but just out of our own discomfort. But there also is absolutely a better way, and you don't have to stay stuck here.
Yeah, I can relate to pretty much everything you said. I mean, it ran my life. I felt like it
Yeah,
totally just ran my life. I was thinking about it all the time or doing something about it all the time. And like you said, it was from a place of just desperation and just wanting to help him. I really thought I was helping him.
absolutely.
Like everything I was doing was going towards that. And if I could just help him, then it would also help me and it would help my kids and it would help the household and everything else. So I think that I would venture to say pretty much everyone listening can relate to some of that. And I didn't realize that, that was what a lot of us fall into. I thought that I was handling it differently and better because I was
Yeah.
jumping in there and, like you said, trying to run interference everywhere. So I
Yep.
totally, totally get that. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So at that point, had you done anything to like work on your recovery before? Like, I didn't even realize that I needed recovery for a long time, but had you like kind of ventured into that arena at all before you found the Secret Sister Circle?
Not a whole lot, a very little bit. My husband had been, by the time I found the Secret Sister Circle, oh, just about a year ago, my husband had already been to rehab once. And so while he was there, I did take some time then to just dive into a lot of, at the time, it was just marriage stuff, but it kind of ever so, slowly led me to finding some other things like your podcast. And it was about that time last summer that I kind of started to realize, I had also fallen into just thinking like, well, when my husband gets better, everything will be better. So it was about that time when I kind of started to see and realize that um, there were some things that I probably needed to work on and work through. And we did end up joining Celebrate Recovery for a little while. I did go start a step study probably just before I joined the Secret Sister Circle and worked on some things like that, but it was all kind of around the same time.
Gotcha. And what was it about the SSC that you thought was different or that was attractive to you? I'm curious because I'm just,
Yeah.
sometimes I look back at um how I viewed things at that time, and wonder if what I tried to create for Christian Wives of Alcoholics looks the same from your side as it did from, from my side as a creator. So I'm just curious if there was anything in particular that you saw and thought, okay, yeah, this is specifically for me.
I would just say mainly the idea that it was specifically for Christian wives of alcoholics. We live in a smaller town, and the celebrate recovery, I definitely think is beneficial, but it was like just a whole, hodgepodge of people of like some people were struggling with their own addictions, and then some. Actually, I think I was the only one I know of in my exact situation, but um and it was just not fully relatable for me. But I definitely knew that I wanted something Christian based. I wasn't all that interested in going to Al-Anon, and it was actually I like I said, I had been doing a lot of listening to like marriage podcasts and stuff, and a lot of Christian stuff that was so great. But then I just was feeling like desperate for where's the connection between dealing with what I'm dealing with, but also, in marriage and from a Christian perspective. And I just like one day in my Spotify, I just went to type married to, and I was thinking like an alcoholic or something like that. And then the married to addiction popped up and I clicked on it. And then, lo and behold, um, you were also a Christian. And just the whole idea that it was for people in my situation, but also had a heart for the Lord and a heart for their husband. And wanted to see things through was really huge for me. So that's really what drew me into it.
I'm glad to hear that you touched on pretty much all of the points that I wanted to come through. Definitely, I was looking for those kind of three things. So somebody who was obviously wanting to be led in a Christian way, um,
Hmm.
somebody who wanted still for their marriage to work out, still, like you said, had love for their husband and wanted everything to end up great and to stay together. And then something that was specifically for a wife because it's different for us in so many different ways. So I'm glad to know that that
Yeah.
came through for you because that was what I was hoping. I basically, and I've said this before, I basically was trying to create what I was looking for and couldn't find. So I'm super happy that those
Right.
things resonated with you too. That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
fast forward a little bit. So, you've been in the SSC for, like you said, around a year or so. What have you
Hmm.
found to be the most helpful part for you? Like, what's really been the most instrumental part for your recovery?
Whew, I would say, a huge part of it is I've learned to let go of a lot. That it's not, mine to try to control. Um, I've learned my behaviors aren't helpful and they keep me stuck in a bad cycle. I've learned how to set better boundaries and focus on what I need to do. I can go out with my friends or go to an event or, do whatever, and I can enjoy my time whether he's drinking or not. Like previously, if he had been drinking, I either wouldn't have left or I'd have gone, but just like been so distant, just in the back of my head, just constantly thinking about all the things that could have gone wrong while I was gone. Um, and I can go to bed when I need to. I can not make excuses. I can allow the natural consequences to happen, and like I'm okay with it. Before, for a while it was kind of a fake it till you make it, like let things like that happen. Um, and I was still bubbling with anxiety, whereas now, like, aside from severe safety risks or something like that, I'm pretty well at peace with just letting things happen. I've learned it's not always perfect, of course, but I've learned to trust myself again, and not try try to constantly catch him and prove to myself that I wasn't crazy or prove that he was lying. And just been able to, see the signs and instead of question and then have him lie to me and then wonder if I'm the crazy one, all this stuff like I know, like I can trust myself that what I'm seeing is real. Um and I honestly didn't believe when when I had heard you talk about being at peace even in the midst of the chaos. I was like, there is no way you can have peace in this sort of situation. And just yeah, through the work here and I'm okay. I mean, not always, of course, like there are good days and bad days, but um and I can still get sucked into old patterns for sure, but overall like I'm okay and I can do the things I need to do and function as a human again.
Yeah, that makes me so happy to hear. And I know that you've done the work, I mean, this isn't something where you join for a month and you learn everything and everything is different. There is some work
Yeah,
involved, just like with anything. But
absolutely.
the kind of reward that you just described is so worth it, like you do have that peace. And I totally get you on that. Like when my husband was back in addiction, if somebody had told me, I mean, they didn't really say peace in particular. Like I did hear some things about detaching and stuff like that. But if I had heard
Mhm.
somebody say, you can have actual peace while your husband is still drinking, I would have thought you are bananas. Like there is zero way.
Yep.
But it's all because
Yep.
of the things that you said, learning how to do things differently. And
Mhm.
it doesn't make the drinking any worse than it was before, just you're just taking your
Right.
hand off the wheel and basically learning to let God do his job, and like you said, trust yourself, like, that's huge. That's super
Yeah.
huge. 'Cause I didn't
Yeah.
feel like I could trust myself or anyone around me or anything that was happening for so long back then, so I'm really glad you mentioned that as well. Was there anything that has kinda surprised you during the last, few months of working on your recovery? Something that you were like, "Oh, wow, I mean, you did mention actually being able to stay in peace, which is huge, but was there anything
Sure.
else that you kind of weren't expecting that you have discovered along the way?
Yeah. I definitely think that the biggest one probably is the whole like I can have joy and I can have peace and I can, do the things that I want to and need to do without just constantly in the back of my head being nagged at what might be going on at home or but the other thing that I guess I just was a little bit surprising and I hadn't really thought about was just some of even the personal connections that I've made. There's a couple of ladies specifically in the SSC that we keep in pretty close like personal contact and um just the support and having the prayer warriors on your side that like I said I just didn't know what to expect, but when that came along, I guess it was kind of a pleasant surprise of like, not only are these women in here to work on themselves, but they're all in here to support and uplift one another and just just love you in your, deepest moments of need. So that was really cool or
Yeah, and
is really cool.
I'm never it always just amazes me how much support there is in that group for
Yeah.
everyone. And everyone in there is going through such hard things, but they all show up for each other. Like you guys all show up for each other every single day. And it doesn't
Yeah,
matter who's
absolutely.
dealing with what, everybody just jumps in and offers help and prayer and encouragement. And sometimes, people will even say, I don't really know what to say, but I want you to know that I'm praying for you, or, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And just having that connection, like, I think that really is a super big piece of it. There's sometimes when people will join and they'll think that it's either just a support group, so just like,
Mhm.
going in there and talking to people, or
Mhm.
and they'll miss the lessons, or they'll think that it's just, the lessons and they won't go in ever join the support group, but I feel like they
Sure.
kind of go hand in hand, don't you feel like it's
Yeah.
kind of like both are an important part of it?
Oh, absolutely. I think that the the lessons are huge for learning how to walk through this. learning to focus on yourself, learning to seek after the Lord, all those things. But there are times in the really, really mucky, miry days that you just need somebody to love you and support you. And just having the ability, I mean, you can jump in there and make a post, and like you said, for the most part, within a couple hours, you've had three or four responses of either people encouraging you or just, um, like you said, praying for you, even if they don't have any advice, or if somebody's been there, they're more than happy to share their experience, and just really, really build and lift each other up that way. So, yeah, I for sure think both of them are really important and definitely go hand in hand. And you get the full scope that way when you do both of them.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that's different about this group that I wanted to mention is we do talk about, what's going on with our husbands. I mean, obviously, people
Mhm.
kind of know what's going, like where everybody's husband is kind of in their recovery. But
Mhm.
I try to make it clear when people come in, it's not just kind of like I don't know, I guess like just a dumping ground, I guess is probably the best way to
Mhm.
put it, for just my husband did this, my husband did that, my husband did this. Because first of all, that's like a whole lot of heaviness, I think is the best way to
Mhm.
describe it. I have been in groups like that on Facebook, and it just always feels negative, 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 negative. And I
Yeah.
feel like the people in there are just always like weighed down by that. And to me, it feels hard. It feels hard to see those things, read those things. I wanted it to be like a spirit of support where we do all know, what's going on with everybody, but it's more around like how this is affecting you and how you need help with it, and getting more direction on how you can handle it instead of just coming in and just being like blasting the husbands all the time. So have you found that to be helpful for you, because it's not just like a constant barrage of terrible things being posted all the time?
Yeah, for sure. I also agree that a lot of times it seems like when you join some of these things, it's just like a bash fest. Like everybody is just in there bashing on what bad behavior they did that time and what they caught them doing this time. And it just is, first of all, I don't think it's helpful for the person posting. I almost feel like that becomes more of like I don't know, almost like a journal of resentments or something, like a keeping track or keeping score, or, things like that. And so, yeah, I love that in the group, like you said, we all pretty well know where each other's husbands are at in their journey. And oftentimes it is, necessary to kind of give a little explanation of what's happening. But then for the most part, it's all focused back onto, what I need, or, the support that, or advice that I need, or prayers that I need, sort of thing. It is far from just going in there and tearing your loved one down. Um, and even a lot of the sisters in there, I think we all do a lot of praying for each other's husbands too. And I think it just makes such a big difference when you go in there with the mindset of knowing that they are hurting and they are broken, and that the Lord doesn't love them any less. And it's incredibly hard, but they're a person, and at one point or another there was a lot of good in that person, and that's what drew you to them, and you love them. And so, yeah, I do love that it's not just a, go in there and hammer on your loved one sort of thing, and it's much more
Yeah.
supportive than that.
Well, because also another reason why I wanted it to not be like that is because one of the main focuses, as you know, is to untie, right? And so if
Mhm.
you're working really hard on your recovery and trying to untie slash detach, whatever you want to call it, and you're going in there and just, seeing all the time all these descriptions of addiction and
Mhm.
behaviors and all of that, like it's real hard to untie from that when you're constantly just seeing it, seeing it, seeing it. So that was another reason
Yeah.
why I kind of wanted to have that. It's kind of like a ground rule in the group, like, of course, we don't not never talk about our husbands, like, that's a big part of
Right.
it, but like you said, it's more around what do you need? What do you need in
Hmm.
your recovery? It's a big difference, so I'm glad that that's come through for
Yeah.
you too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's huge.
And I also think that on the other side of that is like not only does it keep you stuck, but also if I think it's really easy to take on other people's situations too, like if it's constantly negative, not only does it kind of keep you stuck there with your own situation, but then I feel like you almost just get overloaded and overstimulated with all of it when that's and take it on even from other people's situations.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because for sure, you feel I mean, we of course will feel burdened sometimes for each other in there if somebody's
Hmm.
going through a really hard time, but it's not like you said, you're not kind of like absorbing every single detail of every single situation. That's and that because that does just get way too heavy. I mean, our lives and our
Yeah.
situations is heavy enough. Like having all of that can get
Hmm.
really, really weigh you down. So I'm glad that you mentioned that for sure. Um, what is an example of something specific? So you talked about, having better boundaries and things like that. What's an example of something kind of specific that you feel like you're better able to handle now that you've been at SSC a while and you've gone through the lessons and stuff?
Yeah, a lot of that, like I said, I think would have to do with boundaries, like I used to just get sucked into really terrible negative conversations because I felt like it was rude to just walk away and but I've learned like if hurtful things are being said or if things are escalating to a point where it's I can just leave and it's to protect myself and my peace. Like I said, I used to like I couldn't hardly leave the house if he was home and now when I schedule my stuff, like I just go do it. And um it's really freeing, to be able to live to live the life I need to live. And yeah, I think a lot of it is just knowing, I don't have to stay and take this. It is okay to walk away. I don't have to spend time around him, if he's inebriated. I can take space for myself. And I think those things are really huge in being able to not get so wrapped up into it and being able to untie um, is being able to focus on me.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you have a lot of responsibilities in your life. So being able to do
Yeah.
that is a lot. That word freedom I think is really
Hmm.
important. If there are two things, well, really three things that I want women to get out of the Secret Sister Circle, it's drawing closer to the Lord in spite of the circumstance,
Hmm.
because I know that sometimes that feels really hard. It's having that peace that you talked about in spite of the situation and, the storm that still continues to rage around you sometimes. And then having that freedom of getting your life back, of not feeling like you constantly have to be a detective or, an interrogator or a counselor or a spiritual leader or all of those roles that we try to step into as wives when our
Hmm.
husband's going through this, like letting yourself have the freedom from having to wear all of those hats in addition to everything that you already have on your own plate is huge to be able to get away from that. So I'm so glad that you feel that way now. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, what would you say if there's somebody listening? I've had a couple people join and, they've written me and said, "Oh my gosh, I wish I would have done this sooner. I've been thinking about it for
Mhm.
one listener of the podcast said she'd been thinking about it for 2 years and she finally
Oh.
joined. So, if there's somebody else that's on the fence out there that maybe has heard me talking about the Secret Sister Circle or something that just hasn't joined yet, what would you say to somebody that might be considering joining?
Oh, I would just say that the Secret Sister Circle is full of some of the most just beautiful and compassionate and Christ-filled ladies. They're so full of grace and love for each other and for their husbands. Um, Everyone is praying for someone, encouraging each other, and always pointing people back to Jesus. So if you're considering, I just highly encourage you to just do it. It's it's easy to talk yourself out of it or him ha or I did that for a little while. I think it only took me, maybe 2 months of like, well, is it what I need? What if it's not? That sort of thing. But you'll receive so much love and support. And do the lessons and apply them to your life will get better. You can learn to live your life again and actually to enjoy it. Your husband's addictions don't have to be all consuming. Um, but yeah, I would just really encourage anybody who's considering it to just try it. It's not a huge long-term commitment if it doesn't work for you, but I think that if you will go in there and actually listen to the lessons, take notes, do the worksheets, and apply the things that you're learning, even within a pretty short amount of time, there will be some transformation and some freedom in your life. And then just having a place again to be able to share your heart and to share your struggles and to have the love and support, and it's a safe place. I think is huge for anybody who's walking through this right now.
Awesome. I love it. I love that you have gotten so much out of it. I am so proud of you because I know, like I said earlier, this isn't just some sort of magical thing that happens really quickly. You did mention, and it
Yeah.
is true, that you do start to see some changes as soon as you start to, implement some of the things that we talk about. But you still have to do the work. You still have to
Yeah.
do, like you said, do the worksheets, and just joining and, not doing anything with it isn't going to magically transform your situation. But it's not something that really has like a timeline or any due date. So it's something that you can do at your leisure too. So, but I
Hmm.
do know that you have put in the work over the last few months. Like, you have done the things that you need to do in partnership with God to transform, your situation in your life. So I'm really proud of you for doing that work
Well,
because I
thank
know
you.
it's not always easy.
No, and it's easy to get sidetracked too. I'm horribly guilty of then when things are going along okay for a little while, just not feeling like I need it, and then things come crashing down, and then I'm left wishing that I had been doing the work the whole time because I'd be in a better place. But it's all a learning process for sure.
Yeah, and that's normal, when we're going through a hard thing. I mean,
Yeah.
even just with life in general, right? We have so much to do.
Yep.
Sometimes stuff falls to the wayside. But that's one of the things that I love about it, is because it'll still be there, And I know
Yep.
that some people just continue their membership because they just want access to the library, because there's a lot of stuff in the SSC library that, if you're dealing with something in particular, maybe you haven't come up against that in a really long time, but you can go to the library and say, okay, I need a lesson about X, and you can go and listen to it right then. So a
Hmm.
lot of times I think people do kind of put it down and pick it up, and that's normal. I think you do want to be moving through the lessons and, not leave it alone for a really long time, but it is something that you can go back to. And if you do have those times when you're not as diligent, then, like you said, you'll be reminded because
Yep.
you'll start feeling all that pressure again, right? And that freedom and the
Yeah.
peace kind of start to slide away a little bit. So that's a good point too, that, you can kind of just like correct your course at times if you need to. So that's awesome.
Yeah, for
Well, I
sure.
am super proud of you. As I said, I know you've done a lot of work. I am blessed to have you in there. You are a great encourager for other ladies too. So I am just really thankful for that. And I'm thankful for you being here with us today to share your story, because I know that it's kind of a vulnerable thing to do. So thank you so much for taking the time and being brave enough to do that with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. And again, if you want some information on the Secret Sister Circle, which is what we've been talking about, it's the private group coaching program for Christian wives of alcoholics. All you have to do is head to my website, marriedtoaddiction.com, and you will see an option to click for the Secret Sister Circle there. Thank you so much for listening today. I will see you next time. Hey, one more quick thing before I let you go today. Do you follow Married to Addiction on either Instagram or Facebook, or both? If not, I would love to have you join me over there. It's a great place to stay connected with everything that's happening with Married to Addiction. I post updates about my podcast episodes, of course. I post about my freebies. I post about my programs. I post encouragement in the way of Bible verses and things like that. I also post just like some helpful little teaching nuggets sometimes too. So I really think that you would get a lot of value out of that as the wife of an alcoholic. And I would love to have you join me on either Facebook or Instagram, or both. You can find me at facebook.com/married to addiction, or just at married to addiction on Instagram. I hope to see you there.